One of the most useful things about smart maps is the ability to take property measurements for a client or lead within your Service Autopilot account. You can then save these measurements and use them to create estimates more quickly. And I'll show you here how to do it. So right now I'm on a leads page. Again, you can do this for clients or leads, and I'm going to go to more and then property measurements. Now, if you don't see this option, but you want to use Smart Maps, you'll have to get the subscription first. So that's going to be under the account and billing tab. You'll see Smart Maps there. And you can get that. I'm going to click on property measurements here. And it takes me to a map, and here's the client's page. Now, right now, we're looking at the satellite view. There's also a map view, which just looks like this. It's just all grayed out, but you can switch between these two views to measure the property. Now, I'm going to go here with just a simple turf square footage measurement. So this might be for like lawn mowing or fertilization and weed control. Really, I'm just going to be wanting to measure the turf or approximately measure the turf. It may not be able to get perfectly exact here, but I'm going to get a rough estimate. So what I'm going to do first is measure the lot size. So I'm going to go over to where it says enter description and just call this measurement lot size. And then you'll notice my cursor turns into a cross, and what I can do is just simply click on the map where I want to make the measurements. And now if I needed to edit this and move it out, I could click on any of these dots and move it. I could move the edges around here. You also might want to switch between your views as you're measuring. So I'm on the map view, and I want to see the satellite view here to see how accurate I am, and I'll actually zoom in here. And I do want to include this outside edge here, so I'm actually going to move this out. And now this I would consider the lot size. Now again, it's not going to be 100% accurate down to the square foot, but it gives me a very good general estimate here. And then over to the left, I can also do a couple things. I could rotate this to see different angles here. I could also go down and see a tilt map, so essentially see it from a direct bird's eye view over the very top of it, and maybe that helps me get it a little more refined here. It really just depends on how precise you want to get with your measurements. It's really up to you. And now what I can do is, if I want to, basically right now I'm looking at the lot size, and I'm not necessarily going to be wanting to quote based on the lot size. I want to quote based on the turf square footage. So what I want to try to do is subtract out some of these other things that I don't want to actually include in the turf square footage. So maybe I add another item here, and I call this house, and this is another measurement. And before I take that, what I'm going to want to do is maybe change the color of that measurement so we can see it a little bit better. So I can use this tool here to pick the color that I want, and then just go down and click choose. And now you'll notice when I edit this, and I don't need to be 100% accurate here, just a rough estimate. It's going to come up in a slightly different color. We'll maybe make it a little more different here so that it shows up. And then I'm not really sure what that is. Maybe I can look at another view here. Looks like that is turf. So I'll go ahead and leave that. If I wanted to be a little more exact, maybe I go ahead and also discount or measure out the different things like the driveway here and the sidewalk. In this example, though, I'm being very general and broad. I don't really care about that stuff. I want to go ahead and just include that in my measurements. That's fine. Again, it really is dependent on how you quote things. So do you want to include that stuff? For example, sidewalks, if you're going to be having to do work on the sidewalks like edging, or you're going to be blowing them off, maybe you want to go ahead and include them. Same thing with the driveway. Again, this is just kind of the lawn care example, and I'll go into maybe how you could use this for other things as well. But let's say I'm happy with that. So a couple of things here. I've got two measurements giving me a total measurement of this, but that's not quite exactly right because we're adding these measurements, hence the plus sign. So what I want to do is I actually want to subtract out the house. So I'm going to click on this here, and it subtracts out. It gives it a negative sign, and now this is the total square footage. And now I can go ahead and save that value into my custom field here for turf square footage. So it's the turf square footage is roughly 6,000 square feet. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now, let's say that I also wanted to save the house measurement because maybe we do something based on the square footage of the house. A cleaning company, for example, might use that, might use square footage of a house to quote services. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually go up to lot size and click on it, the icon here, twice. And now this 0 here, this O, means that that measurement's not included. And we're going to go down and actually add this so that this is included. So now 3,000 square feet roughly, that is the square footage of the house. And so I could go down and save that as my home square footage. And now both of those custom fields are saved. And maybe I'm going to use that later. Probably wouldn't matter if all I was doing was lawn care. I wouldn't necessarily need that as its own measurement, but it just gives you an idea how you might use this for another industry. Now, the other thing you can do here over to the right on this menu is you can click linear measurement. So maybe you want to measure the outside perimeter of this property if you're going to build a fence or something, or maybe you want to measure the perimeter of a house if you're doing something like perimeter pest control. You can use this linear measurement tool. So I'm first going to hide the property measurements here. And then to measure the perimeter of this house, let's say, I'm just going to click the edges here. And this isn't exact again, but it's good enough for me here. And if I needed to edit these, I could always move them out. And now we've got 262 feet as the perimeter. And if I had a custom field for that, I could go ahead and save that as a custom field if I wanted to. And one thing about linear measurements is you can only do one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this though. The other thing here is if I needed to edit the property location, let's say this isn't right for whatever reason, it mapped it on the wrong house, I can always click on this and grab the location here and move it somewhere else and then go and save the location. In this case though, I'll leave it here. And then this icon here will take you to the client location if we were somewhere else on the map. And this here would enable full screen mode so you could see this in a bigger screen. So I'm going to disable that. And now we have those two measurements saved. So I want to show you how then you could take those measurements, or that one measurement really for the turf square footage, and send an estimate from that or using that. So one thing to note is you would have to have rate matrices set up to do this. I'm going to close the map, but I've got one here set up for my maintenance service. So I'm going to add an estimate here. I'm going to go to the left, click add item, and the service I'm going to include is maintenance. That's what I'm going to quote. Click on maintenance and apply it. And notice it brings up that custom field value and then quotes them the rate. So if they were asking for that service, I could go ahead and quote the service, save this estimate, and send it off to them. And maybe if they're asking for other services as well that I quote based on the turf square foot or based on the home size or whatever other measurements you take, I could also go ahead and include those on the estimate as well. So really that's the value of doing property measurements within Service Autopilot using Smart Maps is you can save those measurements and create estimates from them. And so in the next videos, we'll talk about some of the other features that Smart Maps will give you.